Hi, I'm back. It's Eva. I am going to just stop talking so professionally and just tell you one of the, like, personally, I was the curse breaker, okay, big shocker. So, because I was the youngest in the family, I was an only child, and because of my mom's mental illness and my whole family, my mother's side, they're spread all over the place in the United States, but there was this kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, like emphasis on like each nuclear family, would just handle whatever their business was on their own, and like just report to each other just like the bare minimum details, they would never talk about anything unpleasant or deeply emotional or anything like that. I mean, they did in my house, my grandparents, uncle and great aunt, but not like with other family members. So this was like, I think Dr. Phil was on, but like it was like Oprah wasn't even on yet. So it's like not common to like talk so intimately about your, like now, anywhere you go in public, there's somebody like yakking on their cell phone talking about, their colonoscopy and, their sister's affair. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. I mean, people are just like broadcasting like everything. But I mean, back in the day, I mean, yeah, I'm not a spring chicken. So it wasn't like that. It just wasn't like that. And so it was like hard to get information out of relatives, especially relatives who had like no desire to talk about said subjects, which was like anything you needed to know basically about like what's really going on in the family, like on a deep level, they tell you what they had for breakfast, or I don't know, like what trip they just went on, but like it was just like important information about like any addictions or like sexual orientations or like drug alcohol histories or anything about mental illness. Like these were all like not open topics. So I mean, they weren't mean about it. They just, I mean, if you would ask, you would just get like a curt reply, and it like with literally nothing that you could use for anything. So, in fact, I'm pretty sure I found out some of the details of my mom's illness because my grandmother had a letter from my dad. My parents were divorced at that time and not live near each other, but in her, like, I was putting away her laundry and I like found this letter, and then I read it because I was like 12, but yeah, so I would say that is the kind of thing that happens in families that gets passed down. This sort of like everybody who doesn't, I guess they call air their family laundry. That would be like something that definitely followed for the generations to come. And in fact, I totally remember my grandmother would like, she wouldn't even like talk to her best friend about anything to do with what was going on personally in our family. And I remember thinking that was so strange. I was like, really? Not even your best friend? Like just you two alone? But no. So the problem with our family, most of all, is that my grandmother really, like, her biggest wish was for my mom to like get better from her schizophrenia and at least be able to like communicate in public or dress in public appropriately, or just not put herself in terribly dangerous situations, or just, she was just impossible to help. She was just, it was really hard to help her with anything, even though like that's all we seem to ever do. Because she just was a wild card. She, you just never ever knew what she was gonna do, and you never know what would make her mad, or when she'd have an outburst or a violent episode, or when she'd be perfectly acting fairly normal. I mean, normal for a severely mentally ill person, but okay. My point is that I spent most of my life thinking that I would end up like her, since I was an only child, and my dad was bipolar, so it'd be like he was on lithium, and I mean he had bipolar 1, which is a lot more serious, and it comes with the full hallucinations, not just like the short period hypomania, but it's like the regular mania, which is much longer and much more intense. Anyway, I just did not see how I would not have some kind of diagnosis myself. And I would ask my family, and like they won't discuss it. And so like I lived in fear maybe till I was like maybe in late high school, just assuming that that was going to be my fate. Like basically every time I saw my mom act a fool in public, I would just assume that that was going to be me, like it would be me, like grabbing, like cloth napkins in a fancy restaurant and blowing my nose and screaming and talking, and wearing inappropriate outfits or whatever. It just was like, didn't see any way out of it. I felt like I was just like, like a time glass, like you flip the time glass over and you watch the sand. That's like how I felt. I felt like I was just, and I would just wonder, like, I would be like, how long do I have before this happens? Like, do I have till, like, do I finish high school normal, or like what happens, like and literally that is what I believed. And if my family had been like open to talking about these things, I feel like anything, any reassurance at all that like, or any information about mental health conditions. I mean, my grandfather was a doctor, for crying out loud, but with dead people, he's a pathologist, so like a mental health professional. But it was just like, how can you have 2 doctors in the house and like nobody is discussing any of this? So, but I mean, like, it was also extremely painful for my family. Like, the relatives who weren't discussing it were also the ones who were affected the most. And it was just horrible, horrible. I think when I finally figured out, when I got to be a certain age, that like, okay, or I got more educated, it was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna automatically be like her. It was just like, I was just like, look back at my past, like, how much time have I wasted? Like I couldn't, like, I was like holding my breath for like, I don't know, 15 years of my life. I don't know. It's just like, why did I have to go through all that for no reason? So the last thing I'll say is the biggest other super problem I had is I spent like most of my life going to therapy for like my relationship with my mother, because like I said, she was violent, and there was an incident where I had a head injury for 4.5 from her, and when we were left alone together. And well, actually she had like sort of ran off with me for like a few days, and like my dad had no idea. There were like no cell phones, like where we were or anything. And then ended up in the hospital. And what was my point? My point was I just assumed that all the problems I had with relationships or like just depression or anxiety or like bad dreams or PTSD or whatever, all these different things I had, I figured they were just from like the abuse and neglect from my mom. Obviously, right? 'Cause she's like that loudest one in the room, right? She's the one who's like causing all the commotion. So I spent all this time doing all this therapy on my mom. We're talking about like years. We're talking about like hundreds, probably thousands of dollars, like out the window, like doing all this EMDR, just all this stuff, trying to exorcist my mom's spirit out of my body because it was like basically ruining all my relationships because you know how they say like you end up dating or marrying like your parents on some level because you want to unconsciously work through those issues. It was just like like fantastic, great, you know, like the person I was most terrified of in my life, like literally thought was a monster, devil, or possible witch, like terrified of. I'm gonna like unconsciously pick her spirit, her persona in someone else that I'm like sleeping next to. Oh, doesn't sound good for me. So I was like, okay, I really need to get on this. And so my last point is that I wasted, I mean, I did have some breakthroughs. I didn't waste all the time, but for the most part, yeah, it was an epic fail, okay? And I ended up being in a whole bunch of like not very healthy romantic relationships, shall we say, in a nice way. Due to my, I don't know, like unresolved issues with abandonment, attachment, like anxiety, like fear, I guess being talked to like verbally, being talked to like a dog, I guess, like, you know, I definitely won the award for that by my choices. And I guess when you grow up in that kind of chaos, it's like, it actually doesn't sound that, it doesn't sound that different. So it's like, I mean, my home with the grandparents was good, but it's like we had to see my mom like several times during the year, and they were always long stays, and you know, just pick up after all her damage. She would just like destroy everything, and she'd have like rabbits and cats. I mean, have you ever imagined like 4 feral cats or whatever, and you're scooping up litter that's literally been there for like 3 or 4 months in rabbits? I mean, it's not really scooping at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a hot mess. And broken glass and just blood smeared place. I mean, like, just weird. And like, just her, like, just, I mean, I'd be like cleaning, like scrubbing the floor, and I could just feel her just walking around, you know, smoking, chain smoking, and like, you know, she would stop like her mom, me, like, whenever. I'd just be like, how can I concentrate on cleaning the floor when I'm like, I can just feel like her just possibly gonna attack me? Like, what? And then my family would just be like, you know, we're just cleaning. It's just like, no, we're not. We're like, I feel like I'm like in a booby trapped Warfield. Like, what the, like, this is like scary and terrible, and it felt like nobody was paying any attention, and like they just always assume the best. It's like, and I always assume the worst. It's like between the two of us, it was ridiculous. But come to find out that the person I should have really been doing all that therapy on was my grandmother, who I love to death. She's a doll baby. But she's the one who after she knew I had uh, a TBI as a child from my mom, you know, mild traumatic brain injury, right, from being assaulted by my mom, she's the one who kept bringing me, you know, against my will, because I never wanted to go, like, to be around my mom, like, for years and years and years. So I was 18, I had to do it. So it's like, honestly, the person I needed to have the therapy over, and probably why I never got my shit together with relationships, because I was focusing on the wrong person. The betrayal was the adopted parent who didn't protect me from the biological parent, if that makes sense. My grandmother did not protect me from my mother, because it was almost like my mom and I were siblings, right? And my mom was like the older sibling, and it's like, just think of like an addict, you know, like a parent, they have an addict older child and they have a younger child who's, you know, a goody two shoes, does, you know, not a problem. And like she would always choose my mom, like literally always my mom. It's like a no-brainer, you know? And so that's like a whole, I don't know how many years that is of like never being chosen, ever. And always being in danger. So that is the relationship. The betrayal was there, because if she would just had me like stay with other people and just went there on our own, but it's like she didn't have anybody to help her, because like in our family it was just like, so they never talked about it. It's like they would certainly never ask anyone to witness that. So it's like I had to go really just to be like a helper, like help clean, help, you know, make the family look like we were like, I don't know, like I don't understand why people, like family members are like, oh, appearances are everything, like as long as you like look like you're a normal family, then that's what matters. It's like, what are you talking about? I don't get that part. That was like all it was. It was like appearances were like a big deal. It's like my mom would just like kooky. It's just like, how is this a normal family? We look like insane. Like, like I don't get it. But and like I said, I don't think it was my grandmother's fault really, because she didn't have any freaking help. She didn't have any help. Like most families of mentally ill, she had like no help. There's nobody. The family has to do everything, because like our social services system sucks, and they pay those people like nothing. So it's like there's always this turnover. I don't know. It's just like really screwed up system. You spend all the money in the society on like sports and entertainment, and then like mental illness and addiction are just like, you know, get like whatever's left over, surplus of it. I mean, like it's just BS. But anyway, that's the end of my video. I just wanted to talk about, now you see why I became a curse breaker, right? Because curse breaker is just somebody who will like talk about it and open, and then get the family to like address the issue, and then try to not pass it on. I did pass it on to my kids, honestly, because I was in a marriage that had addiction in it for like 20 years. But yeah, so that didn't work out. Like protecting them did not work out. But yeah, that's the problem. You don't want to just spend generation after generation just like perpetuating the same problems. I mean, I don't think that's why my grandparents, you know, great grandparents came over on a boat from Sicily to like just have all this internal conflict within the family. Hell, I don't think that was like why they did all the sacrifices. But all right, that's enough.